This video today is a very long-awaited video that we have been meaning to do, but it's just gotten pushed off because of stuff that's come up. But we are very excited to share it with you guys today because there's been a lot of thought that we've put into this trailer. For those of you who don't know, we actually used to have an old ambulance as our grip truck. It worked great for a lot of years. We really liked it. We were kind of sad to see it go, but really the more and more we talked about it, it just made a lot more sense to do a solution like this. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown as to why we chose to go with a trailer setup such as this over something like a traditional grip truck, because that was kind of in talks as we were looking to upgrade our ambulance. We were looking at some larger grip truck, box truck type setups, and the more and more we kind of talked about it, the more and more we kind of came to this solution. So first of all, in the area that we live here in North Dakota, we're not doing a ton of downtown shooting. We don't have a massive city here where parking is a huge problem. Occasionally we'll find ourselves downtown, but it's usually not an issue to park this guy. The second thing is, with this solution, we were able to have a truck and trailer system. Obviously, you need a truck to pull the trailer, but what this allowed us to do is not use the trailer if we don't need to. We find ourselves going out on shoots where we're packing really light. If we're doing a 3-4 hour drive away, this allows us to have a usable vehicle for small scenarios if we're going out doing some aerial work. And it's just really nice to have that flexibility of a functional truck and not a giant box truck that you're forced to drive around all the time. Being able to disconnect it so that someone can use the vehicle to run an errand or go back and pick something up is super, super handy, because you can just park this guy wherever you need to. We're gonna jump into the trailer. We're gonna give you a little bit of a tour, show you how we set up things and kind of what we all have in there. Right away, you'll notice we got our ramp here. This is actually really nice and something we've come to really like for a few reasons. In the trailer, you'll notice that there are a lot of stuff on wheels, and we chose to go that route just because being able to have things on carts is obviously always really convenient. So with a ramp like this, it's really nice because the trailer is so low compared to something like a box truck. We don't have to deal with a motorized ramp. Now, moving in, this is a 7.5, I believe, by 14-foot trailer. It has a slightly higher ceiling in this, which we wanted to have just to give us a little extra room for things like speed rail, for having a nice attic. We'll go into the front and we'll talk about kind of the front side of the trailer first, and then we'll work our way back. Okay, so here's kind of the uglier part of the trailer. We have been meaning to kind of do something with this area, and we have a few ideas, but we haven't quite had the time to do it yet. So this is currently how it sits right now. We have all our rags up here. So we have a lot of the 8x, 12x stuff, whether it's negatives or diffusion, but this is kind of where the oversized ones go. And then from here down below, we have our fog juice, which is typically in some milk crates. Again, this kind of area we leave a little bit open so that we can throw some extra milk crates in here for just kind of whatever the shoot calls for. And then down below, we have a few things like some safety pop-up cones, hard hats, safety glasses, and then we have tarps back there. Beside it, we have this guy, which is used for these. These are chocks. These go between the tires because this is a tandem axle. And it's a way that we can brake the trailer if we need to disconnect it from the truck, which we find ourselves doing from time to time. So these are really handy. In addition, you will see over here some sandbags. So we do have sandbags in a few different locations. This is one of the kind of dump spots. There's also some behind the camera right now below the does-all cart. But we like to have them in a few different spots to kind of weigh out the trailer evenly, and then just for ease of access. Now, above it, this is kind of a fun little section that we love. It's a kind of an odd space, so there's not a lot that you can do with it, but we are using this E-track. You will see it all around in the trailer, actually. And we found these handy little grips that just so happen to work with our low boys. Now, in the opposite corner over there, it's a little bit of a tight squeeze, so I'll just cut to some B-roll footage so you can see what's going on there. Now, Adam did this, and it's been super, super handy. So what we have going on here is a couple AC outlet breakouts. Then we have some chargers. We also have a small portable battery system. It's a Max Oak 1000 watt hours, so it's not huge, but we choose to keep that one in here. And our EcoFlow lives on the camera cart because that one can handle a little bit more draw. But this one lives in here to just help with things like the LED lights. And in addition to that battery, that portable battery, we can use it if we need to, but we have the trailer battery on the front of the nose. So that thing helps power things like, again, the LED lights. It helps power the electronic jack that we have. We also have a charging platform that we actually made a video on. Again, if you haven't seen that, I'm gonna be referencing a lot of unique things in this build that we've made videos on already, so check those out below. And then lastly, we do have a DC jack just in case we ever need it. Okay, so here we are with the custom built cart that our friend Evan did. We have a video on how that cart was made, but I'm gonna talk through all of the things that we have in here, which there's a lot of different items in here. So I'm gonna try to make this quick. So first of all, we have the combo stands on front. We have a handful of those. Over here, we have, this is again kind of miscellaneous storage, but we have the barn doors for some of the aperture lights. We have cine foil up here. We have CTO and CTB. While they are getting phased out with a lot of these new lights that are bicolor, there is still a really important factor to think about with having CTO and CTB on your grip trailer, grip truck, and that is for practicals. There is still other light variables other than the really expensive lights that you're buying that you might need to shift the color temperature for. So still really handy to have on a trailer or a truck, still recommend having it. Right away, we have some square components, some junior components, some right angle stuff. This is for building an 8x frame, square tubing. Below that, these Avenger ears. So these Avenger ears are used for Avengers 8x and 6x fold away frames. They make setting up an 8x or 6x just super fast. So a little spendy, but I think an investment that is well worth it. Below that, we have baby pins. So all kinds of different baby pins. We have scissor clamps, baby pin receivers. We have some suction cup stuff. Moving on to this crate, foliage. Kind of a random one, but this is actually really nice if you're diffusing overhead and you can see the diffusion line. Foliage can work as a great way to kind of mask that hard edge. You can wrap this around the edge of an 8x, 6x. Well, this makes it a little less noticeable. Onto this one, we have the tennis balls. These are really important for protecting people's spaces. If you're in a really nice house, you have C-stands and stuff, you put these on it. You can also use it if you have a C-stand that's boomed out and the end of it is sticking out. This is a way to let people see it easier so they don't run into it. This one is pretty empty, but this is where we keep gobo heads. So grip heads, you know, stuff like that, and a few miscellaneous pieces. Above that, we have tripod accessories. So we have some small hi-hats in here. Typically we have kind of anything related to tripod accessories. Above that, we have the menace arm setup. So this is, we actually have components for the single menace arm, as well as double menace arm. The one component for this is pretty big, so it actually lives in a different spot. Menace arm stuff is in here. We use these all the time. We really like them. Hopefully you can hear me over all the clanging. Moving on, we have round components. So here are some ears for when we're doing something like a 12x build using speed rail. Overhead, these work great. Pop them into lollipops. And on the note of lollipops, right above it, we have our lollipops. You can see we have a variety of these guys. Sometimes they do live on the combo stands, but if they don't, they come in here. Onto this next one is speed rail accessories. So in here we have things like big bends, wall spreaders, couplers, more big bends, and then a couple crosses too. So a bunch of different stuff there. We find ourselves using this crate quite a bit. Again, more speed rail components. We have Mayfer clamps, some tools, just more speed rail accessories in general. And then here we have our trusty haze machine, which is for those of you that are wondering, this is the Hurricane Haze 4D Chauvet. And then lastly, this one's an important one. It's an important one when you need it. Rope and corkscrew. When you are working outside and you're flying 8x, 12x, stuff like that, and you're dealing with a little bit of wind, it is so worth it to tie down. Having this stuff is super handy if you are doing outside and using big frames, just from a safety standpoint. So that is that cart here for the milk crates, but there's actually a lot in the back. I won't show everything, but as you can see, we have the very obvious things like CTO, CTB, we have rolls of diffusion, we have rolls of ND. We use that for windows sometimes. Very handy to cut down on some intensity on windows. In addition, we have smaller sizes of speed rail back there. We have some different baby pin stuff, small booms, stuff like that. Moving back, we will go to the does all cart here. On the front here, we have our different flags, cutting stuff, diffusion. We got pizza box up here, a little 2x2 pizza box here. We got some different frames of diffusion here. These are just 18x24, 250, 216, stuff like that. Sorry for all the banging. This is a grip trailer, so there's gonna be noise, you know. Mirror boards, things like that, you name it. We got the small stuff in here. Now, moving on, we have this guy. This is the Stinger crate. So all of the 50-foot Stingers go in here. Below it, we have just a general electric. So we have things like 3-furs, We have these are very handy. It's just a remote switch that allows you to turn on and off an outlet. We also have some cheaters if you have an outlet where you don't have a ground. We also do have some squeezers here, just in case, again, for practicals. Gotta have those. And then down here is empty. We try to leave some spaces empty so that depending on the shoot, we can add additional items into here that aren't necessarily a part of the kit. Over here we have the ever essential apple boxes. So we got a variety of these. We have some foam boxes, which we love. We have some regular size apple boxes, as well as these little cuties. Look at these little mini apple boxes. So here we have a quarter apple mini. It gets kind of confusing when we're having to refer to half apple mini. We find ourselves stumbling on it a lot, but these are actually really nice. Really recommend having them. Down here we have a really versatile item that we use a ton. These are Cardellini's. Of all kind of the grip equipment that we have, I would say that Cardellini's are probably one of the top used items for us. If you're shooting on location, different spaces, Cardellini's come in super, super handy. So we kind of have a variety of them. We have some with some receivers. In addition, we also do have some scissor clamps in here. We have some in the Evan cart as well. We refer to it as the Evan cart, but the custom built cart, we have some in there. But these come in really handy for on location stuff, and we use these a ton too, so figure it's good to have it in a few different locations. Just more baby pin stuff in here. And this last milk crate right here, it's kind of a flex case, but then it also has this cable cover stuff. We honestly don't find ourselves using this stuff that often, but it is kind of nice to have just in case we do need it. Up here we have a few more milk crates. This first one is a miscellaneous crate. So we have some shears, which are really nice for covering up windows. We got some duve in here as well, some muslin, just different fabrics, some more cinefoil, some, if you want some small pieces, they're in here. Cinefoil is expensive, you know, if you can reuse it, why not? And then in addition, we also have some cans of haze, which are really nice, and some zip ties. So above it, we have some baby rails. We honestly don't use these a ton, but every once in a while, we do find these to be handy. If you're doing some gripping with, you know, grip heads, some C-stand stuff, they can come in handy. Beside it, we have some more small rolls of diffusion. So we have everything in here from 216, 250, opal. They're just small little pieces. So you might be using them for a light, but sometimes you might be using them for a practical that you have in the scene. The last milk crate here that we have is this guy. This is, again, we have some more tarps here, but it's tarps, ratchets, and bungees. Pretty self-explanatory. We do use these guys a ton. These are quick ratchets. You know, people might throw some shade at us because we're not using real ratchets, but I will say these save so much time. Bungees, ratchets, tarps, that's what's in there. We have this little guy here. This is by CLM. Cute little bag. We like to call it the parachute bag. It looks a little messy, but it's actually a really smart, well laid out bag. Lastly, in this area, we have two things that I haven't talked about. And the first one is right here. This is our 4x4 section. So we have things like floppies, frames of diffusion, some silks, beadboards, of course, kind of the basic essentials for 4x4s that you might need. In addition, we typically put these guys, meat cleavers, in here like a floppy, but they're just a little skinnier, kind of cute. And they work for kind of certain tight spaces where a 4x4 might not work. So right up here, this is the spot for our wag flakes, which we find ourselves using a ton. They're just super quick to set up, really handy. Not great for outside, but a really great piece of equipment. Okay, so we've covered this side of the trailer here, so let's move on to this section. Now, we have one general shelf here, and this is, for the most part, it is lighting. This guy's a random one, but we have our quacker clamp in here. This is always an awkward one to store, which is for the beadboard. And then in here, we have some Fresnels for the smaller aperture lights, the 2X Fresnels. In here, we have the Falcon Eyes, which are just our flat panels, some of the components for that. And then more aperture modifiers in here. And then lastly, we have the dishes for the 1200Ds. Here we have the B7Cs, those bulbs that Aperture makes. We've been big time Aperture fans since the very beginning, actually, since the original Lightstorm. We've been using their products. So we like to keep things in the same ecosystem. And so that is why you see a lot of Aperture lights here. Moving down, we have the original MCs, which we love. And then here we have the MC Pros. So both MCs, love them both. There's obviously some benefits to the MC Pros, but these little guys still come in handy too from time to time. Here we have the big boy Fresnel, the F10 Fresnel, which we use with the 600 and 1200D and the 600Cs. And then we have the two spotlight mounts here, two different beam angles on those guys. and then we have some 60Ds here. And then down here, pretty self-explanatory, but we have some 300Ds, some 300Xs, and then typically what we do actually is we'll rearrange some things and we can put our infinibars down in this space too. And then on the bottom side here, we have all the big lights. So we have the 600Cs, 1200Ds, and then moving all the way to the top is kind of our attic. It's simple, but it works really well. It's made out of 2x4s and then just some basic plywood, but it helps keep things really organized. Basically what we have here is 6-foot speed rail right here, and we can hold 8 of those in that space. Moving over to here, we have the 8-footers, can fit 8 of those. Above we have the 12-footers. Again, we can do 12 of those. We typically don't need that many, but we have the space for it. Over here, we have our square tubing, which we use for 8x8 frames. If we're building one with the components. And then these are those fold-away frames I was talking about. We have a 6x and an 8x. 9 out of 10 times we find ourselves pulling these guys out before we're building a 8x8 or 6x out of speed rail or square tubing. Again, because those are just so quick to use. Up top here is kind of the attic space, and it works pretty well that we can just put all the small diffusion. So a lot of 8x, we do have some 12x because they don't take up a lot of space, and then we can just shove those up there out of the way, and they kind of stay put because they're pushing up against the ceiling. What did I miss? Well, the lighting in here, Adam actually redid all of that. When we bought the trailer, it was just a single little light right here. It was not very sufficient for the trailer, and when you're trying to find something, kind of sucked. So he did some wiring and put in these little LED strips so that the trailer is really illuminated. You can see what you're doing in here, which is super nice. And those run in kind of the electrical system that I covered a little bit on. So the last thing on the end of the trailer here is this guy. This is a rolling C-stand cart. And this is actually one that we had fabricated. We kind of came up for the design for it, sketched it up, and then someone that I knew did some welding and whipped it together for us. So it holds 12 C-stands. Pretty simple. So with that, we'll move to the front outside of the trailer. We've made a couple modifications up there that I'd love to show you. So we are at the front of the trailer here. Typically there's not a lot of things unique with the front of our trailer, but we have made a couple changes, modifications up here that are kind of nice things that are worth going over. So first of all, we have this motorized jack, which honestly, it's a little bit slow, but it just makes things really easy when you're on set or when you're coming back from production. And you don't want to sit there and crank it. So this is a really great upgrade. We've loved using this. This guy right here is a little weird looking, but it actually allows us to trailer around the trailer inside the studio here without having to hook it up to the truck, because obviously if you're hooking up to the truck inside a small space like this, it can be kind of hard to maneuver this into certain areas if you want to move it around. So this guy works super great, and the awesome thing is it just uses a 20-volt drill, and so you just turn the drill on and it is geared way down, and then it moves the wheels down there, and then you just manually steer it. So this is the trailer valet, and we've been actually loving using this. Works super well. Right here's the one area that we are gonna be fixing. Our battery tray here is a little jiggly, so that's on the list of things to fix. And then over here, while we're talking about electronics, we have some shore power. So Adam did some work to tie into the electrical on the inside that he did, so that we can just, if we pull up to a location, we can just plug this guy in, or we can even plug in a generator. It'll charge the trailer battery as well as that Max Oak battery on the inside, that 1,000 watt-hour battery. Charges both of them, and then that keeps the lights powered. It keeps so that we can continue to use this motorized jack. And then the other great thing too is it acts as a distribution on the inside. So on the inside, we actually have a few breakouts for AC outlets in there. So if this thing's plugged in, you can distribute to those outlets. If it's not, it actually reverts back to the Max Oak, that battery pack that we have on the inside, and that will power those outlets in there because it actually has an inverter. So kind of a nice little addition that we have. Again, just an easy way to make sure these batteries are always staying topped off. And then in addition to that, these other two guys right here, this one is, again, a way that if you're not, say, plugging into it, but if you have a light that you need to set up near the trailer, you can just plug into this guy and it'll pull right from that battery pack on the inside. And then this guy's just an AC outlet, just in case we ever need it. So they're small little additions, but they come in handy. They're really nice. Like I said, we keep the smaller battery pack in here. We don't use these all the time, but it's nice to have. The EcoFlow lives on the camera cart because that is going with us everywhere all the time. And speaking of which, I will show you one last thing that I didn't cover, and that is where our camera cart goes when we need to load that up. It's kind of the first item off the trailer when we get on a location. We take it off on every location, so that's why it's kind of partly blocking the middle aisle. It's because it gets puked every time. So it kind of comes in up the ramp, and we just pivot it 90 degrees, and then it fits in here nicely. We like this setup because again, if you don't want to take it off, if you just want to drop the ramp, you still have access to the full cart. It's easy to grab stuff. So it works really well for that. And yeah, that's everything. I have a pizza party that I got to get to though, so I'm going to jet to that right now. Pizza party! Woo!
We got crazy puffs. Oh yeah, you got to try the crazy puffs.
I've never seen these.
Ooh!